Alright, what's going on, guys? Just doing a quick video today of my settings. I've had a few people request it, and I'm going to break it up into two parts because I use Provo Hat's mouse accel. So I'm just going to go over like the basic settings that you would have if you don't use that program. And I've had a few people request for some settings on TikTok and on YouTube here, so I'm just going to go over it real quick. The first thing that's probably a lot different than what most people have is I have the crosshair damage feedback on off. And the reason for this is because I don't find that it's very accurate. Sometimes it gives you a hit marker even though you're not actually hitting the target. So for me, it's just easier to turn it off. That way I can actually see, especially with like iron sights, I can actually see exactly what I'm shooting at without a bunch of clutter on the screen. It's more of a personal preference thing, but I feel like if you're struggling hitting shots, maybe, turn this off. I know it's kind of weird if you go from playing with hit markers to playing without, but within like a week or two, like you won't really notice, and you'll notice that your visual clutter on your center of your screen, especially on iron sights, like I said, is a lot better. Damage numbers, I just have on stacking. That's like just kind of personal preference. Some people have it on like both or floating or whatever. Both is like, well, you'll just get like for every hit that you actually get, you'll give like, give you a per bullet type of damage number. If you put on both, it'll put on that plus what your total damage is. I find it kind of distracting if I have both on, so I just put stacking because I want to know, I want to see that like nice one clip damage number that I get. Like if I one clip somebody for 160 or 180, I want to see the full number pop up. It's really satisfying, and for me, it's just more of a placebo effect. Uh, it's really personal preference. It's just whatever you prefer on that, but for me, it's stacking for sure. Ping, default, obituaries on. You want to know where people die. Mini-map rotation, I have that on because it's similar to Call of Duty. That's what my background is. I've played Call of Duty for years and years before I switched over to Apex. So for me, it's just easier to recognize where I'm at when the map rotates versus when it's stationary. Auto weapon cycle, have it on. Auto sprint off. Double tap sprint, I have it off. Incoming damage feedback. This is one that I played with for a while. Some people have the 3D, 2D. For me, it's visually easier to see on 2D where you're getting shot at because it's a very small marker on your screen that lets you know exactly where you're getting hit from. I find this 3D and having both of them on is just more confusing than it is anything. This is another one that some people skip over, but it's pretty popular now that everyone knows to turn this off. It's taking damage, like when you're trying to do a shield swap or something like that. You want to have this off. If you don't, when you go to loot someone's death box and someone shoots at you, it's gonna kick you out of the box, and you're not gonna be able to get the shield. So I'm pretty sure by now, because Apex has been out for so long, this is pretty much off on everyone's settings. But for whatever reason, if you don't have it off, go ahead and turn it off. That is a must. Streamer mode, blah, blah, blah. Performance. I don't monitor my frames or any of that stuff. I do have colorblind on. Trinopia, I believe is how you say it. This is just more of a placebo effect for me. However, with this mode on, you can see purple shields sometimes through boxes, even if you're not Loba. So that is something really, really good to have on as a little cheat code there for you to see through some of the pill boxes and stuff. You can see purple items through, like a Phoenix, and purple shields, I believe, will bleed through. So you can actually see, that's actually really, really useful. None of this other stuff, I guess, is important. Let's see. So this is my mouse settings. I do play with mouse acceleration on, but not in game. Not in game. And if you haven't seen my aiming guide or like my aiming story of how I originated to getting to these settings, basically I'm gonna leave my aiming guide or story in the description or on screen for you, so you can kind of go see how I ended up on these settings. So let's see. So my mouse sensitivity is on 1.5. My ADS multiplier, I would say 99% of the time, my ADS multiplier is always on 1. Now, there's a couple of different reasons that this would change, and it depends on what guns that I run in the game. So, for example, if I'm running a lot of SMGs or maybe the Wingman, I'm like 99% of the time I'm gonna be running on 1.0. If I'm running the Spitfire or like with the 3X or something like that, I sometimes will change this to 1.1, but it depends on the game. I'm not real big on changing sensitivity, but changing this from 1 to 1.0 is not really that much of a difference. So it just depends. I mainly use that as like when I'm in a rut for aiming, like my shot is off or something like that for whatever reason, I just can't get it out. Sometimes I will just change this to 1.1, and I'll probably play 1 or 2 games and then change it back. So I don't go from 1.5 to like 3.0, something like that whenever I'm having problems with aim or whatever. You can turn this on, the optic per sensitivity. I've messed with it before, as you can see. But for simplicity's sake, I don't mess with any of this. If you're on controller or something like that, this might be worth doing it if you're not doing the advanced load control options for some of the aiming stuff. So my DPI is 800, but like I said, I'm running it through the Provo Hat's mouse accel. So your 360 might be different than mine, so just keep that in mind. But there's nothing wrong with playing this. If you're playing without any acceleration or any of that stuff on, 1.5 on 800 DPI is, to give you a reference, it's the same as Lulu Lovely's settings. I actually did a video on that as well, but it's I would say it's medium to like slightly higher sensitivity. So it's kind of like, I'd say it's like medium range when it comes to sensitivity. So I believe my 360 is something just about like that. Like it's not too low. So it's right there. All right, so video. I do native. There was a time where I played like Lyric or Faide, where I was running 16:10, and this is like the stretched mode. And what this does is it just stretches out the figures in the how do you say, the character, it stretches the characters in the game as well as your whole screen. It kind of gives off the impression that it's easier to hit and your movement does look faster. That's one of the tricks that Lyric and Faide do, is that they will run the 16:10 to make it look like their movement is faster. And it's one of the reasons I might actually do a video on that later. I'm not really sure. I might do a movement video and talk about some of that stuff. That basically it's more of an appearance thing. Like some of the movement stuff that they do is just more of appearance than what someone would actually see shooting at them. So visually it looks really good, and that's one of the reasons why those guys are so popular. So if you want to look faster and appear that you're moving faster and the environment and everything is moving faster, you're running on 16:10. But for me, my best response and my aim seems to be the best on native. I've tried both. I ran 16:10 for a long time, and I eventually just switched back, and I believe that is, for me, the best settings. Field of view, I play 110. I've tried other settings, and I think Shroud runs at like 96 or something like that, which is pretty low. For me personally, 110 just feels the best. Also, if you're into one-to-one aiming, if you run 110 on 1080 native for this right here, if you want one-to-one ratio for your aim, you can go to here and whatever sense that you're running, you can put it on 1.3, and you'll have a 1-to-1 ratio for your aim. And what I mean by that is that whenever you aim down sights, your sensitivity will be the exact same as it is whenever it is that you whenever you're not ADS, basically. So Apex is not a 1-to-1 ratio aiming, even though it says that it is. This is the 1x multiplier. It says it right here. This will make you, well, no, it doesn't, but basically, so 1.0 is technically not it's not the 1 times multiplier that it would be in a lot of other games like COD, for example. Okay, so that's just something, if you're really into that and you want your ADS to be the exact same. I think Quake actually did a video on this, where if you run 1.3 ADS multiplier at 110 FOV, then your ADS and your hipfire will literally be a 1-to-1 ratio. For me, running a 1.3 is too high. I miss too many shots. It's nice that it is the same and you don't get that aim slowdown that's pretty high in Apex. It's always something you could try. But anyways, back to this. VSync off, NVidia reflex. So before there was an update on Apex, and I forget when this came out. It might have been last season, but I didn't play with this on because it wasn't here. Now the thing is, when it came out, when the settings came out for this, it just put it on enabled and boost for me, and I played with it like that, and I just got used to it. Now I didn't always play with it. If you feel like you are better with it off, like before the update, you can change it back, but I just left it on. It does seem to increase a little bit of latency. It's probably more placebo than it is anything, but for me, I just leave it on. You know, if there's any sort of advantage in there, then I'll want it on, right? Play with all anti-aliasing off. I play on this, depending on what kind of PC you have. Play on 8 VRAM, and the reason for this is if you run it lower, for me it seems like there's a lot more latency whenever it's in the low, like all the way down here. Your PC might run better, but you're gonna feel it, like when you're aiming and turning and stuff like that. All with this low, or disabled, low, 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 all disabled, low, low, low. And audio, master volume all the way up. Sound effects, I have like 80. Depends on what headset you're running, really. This is all subjective to what headset you're running. So, but anyways, that's it for the main settings and video settings that I use. And if for whatever reason you're running Provo Hat's mouse accel, I will show you that right now. Okay, so for the Provo Hat's mouse accel, for the curve and everything that I use, this is a pretty crazy one, and it's just my personal preference. There's tons of different curves that you can use, and just for me, I use the natural acceleration mode, and this makes the acceleration not so sharp, so it's not so immediate, so it makes tracking a lot easier. Sensitivity 1, acceleration 1.3333, sensitivity cap, it goes all the way up to 16.6. That means it's 16.6 times what my sensitivity is, which is right here, which is 0.3 on the X and 0.3 on the Y. Now, I don't angle snapping, I use sometimes. Sometimes I use it. And a lot of the times, like I said, like with some of the other sensitivity stuff that I do, it depends on what guns I'm running. So if I'm running the Spitfire with a 3x on it, I'll probably run an angle snapping. Because the thing is, when you're shooting with the Spitfire, you're pretty much, a lot of the movement is left to right. It's very linear. So now if I was to try and use like a wingman or something like that, I would not have angle snapping on. But this is just personal preference, okay? There's lots of different curves, and I might actually do another video on how to actually make different types of curves and what curves work for you. and a lot of it just depends on your play style. This is very, very subjective. This is definitely not something the beginner would want to jump right into and start making curves with on acceleration. Like I said, if you haven't seen my aiming story of how I actually ended up using these settings, I will link that in the description below or on screen. So that's pretty much it for all of my settings. I hope you guys enjoy. Leave me a comment or a question if you have anything concerning any of the stuff I talked about. I'm pretty good about getting back with everyone on whatever questions you might have, especially about the Provo has mouse accel. I'm gonna do another in-depth video on actually how this whole thing works. It's just haven't gotten to it yet with work and everything. So see you guys again real soon.